Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for liking this video, subscribing, and following us. I wanted to do a video where we kind of concluded the lawsuit that we were reviewing yesterday, which is so much 263 pages. Of course, a good portion of those were the exhibits that I in itself thinking really like I think that they require a separate video. But let me just say this, and I had a conversation with Julia and Eugenia about this. Is my thought process behind this lawsuit isn't about defamation whatsoever. I think that Rogelio, in my opinion, is going to use this lawsuit in the appeal process for the Argentinian courts. Okay. I don't know. I just find the lawsuit to be very bizarre, very repetitive, very much like, pointing fingers. We see evidence of what Rogelio feels like is defamation from what he has suffered. Some of us have probably, could probably argue that that's not the case because of what we saw, right, based on our own research. But the declaration from Geoff Payne requires a separate video. So I combined that last part of the declaration and wanted to make just one video of that declaration alone where we hear Geoff. That's kind of my conclusion of what I feel like as far as Rogelio Nores and what he's doing with this lawsuit and why he needs this lawsuit is that I feel like it's supposed to serve him in the appeal in Argentina. I don't know how. But I've seen lawsuits like this where like things are done for strategy more. I'm amazed at just the information that we have found out from Geoff's declaration alone. Just the declaration alone. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let's get this video going and please support the channel by hitting the like button. He says, Liam's American visa expired on September 30th of this year, I think. So on that date, approximately, he chose to renew it in Argentina. I believe that because Roger Nores, his friend, and I will expand on this later, is a resident in this country and because in addition, I understand that Liam took advantage of the fact that one of his former bandmates from the band One Direction played here in Argentina. Liam told me about this plan on the phone, and later I also talked about it with Nores. So Liam Payne's dad talked to Rogelio about this plan right here. I understand from what Liam spoke with Karen, his mom, and my wife, that the stay was only for 5 days. Then I know that it was extended because it was extended, but I did not know the reason until I arrived in Argentina. And I found out that it was due to his visa issue and the medical exams that Liam was required to renew it. I want to make it clear that Liam did not have his own cell phone, and it was his decision. In recent years, he changed his cell phone number numerous times. He decided to be disconnected as a method of protection to avoid social networks and also to stay away from the possibility of relapsing into his own addictions. That decision was very personal to him. He had all the support from the family group. Personally, I agree that it was really a way to take care of himself for himself. For that reason, my phone contact with Liam was not direct. It was always through third parties, particularly in his last stay in Argentina. It was through his girlfriend, Caitlin Cassidy, and Roger Nores. Kate for love, and Roger because he accompanied and took care of Liam in these last months and reported his condition to me. In this same act, the complainant agrees to provide within the next 48 hours the conversation held with Roger Nores and Caitlin Cassidy, in addition to the calls he makes with them during his stay in Argentina with Liam. Okay, this is highlighted. I don't know if it's highlighted for the purposes of the lawsuit, but just letting everybody know. The same for my family group, which is made up of my wife Karen and my two daughters Ruth and Nicola, who contacted Liam in the same way with the same people I mentioned. Sometimes the fact of having to talk to my son in this way through another made me feel bad, but I knew it was the best thing for him. Liam and I had a very fluid relationship. We saw each other every other month, usually at his house. He lived in London and I lived 2 hours from there. The excuse to see each other was to get together with to get together with him and my grandson, Liam's son, Bear, who is 7 years old. Liam is separated from his son's mother. Okay. All right. And there's a question that the prosecutor asked. Okay. Asked by the prosecutor to say how he became aware of the death of his son, he replies, I became aware of Liam's death from Roger. I was at home with my wife. He called me at about 5:23 p.m. here. I didn't see the call until about an hour later. In the middle, he called me once again, and I sent him a message to call him as soon as possible. When I saw all those calls at 6:18 p.m. here, I called him back. In the first call, I asked him what had happened, and he replied that he had to come here because an accident happened. He told me it's true, but I didn't understand what he meant. The call was cut off, so I called him again, and Roger insisted that I had to travel here, but he did not confirm what happened. I asked him twice if Liam was dead, but no, the only thing he told me was to come to Argentina. I think he didn't want to tell me so as not to give me that news while I was there, but it was obvious that he was going to learn about it through the media. Although at that moment I imagined that something bad had happened to Liam, I automatically contacted my daughters and they were already seeing it in the media what had happened. And at the moment we prayed that the news was a lie, but I didn't understand what he meant. The call was cut off, so I called him again, and Roger insisted that I had to travel here, but he did not confirm what had happened. I asked him twice if Liam was dead, but no. The only thing he told me was to come to Argentina. I think he didn't want to tell me so as to not give me that news while I was there. But it was obvious he was going to learn through the media. And at that moment, I imagined something bad had happened to Liam. I automatically contacted my daughters, and they were already seeing the news medias what had happened. And at that moment, we prayed that the news was a lie. In between, I have missed calls from Roger. I didn't answer because I was talking to my daughters. I returned them to see him later, but he didn't answer me. I understand it was because he was also talking to my daughters. At that moment, I decided to travel to Argentina on the first available flight. Sasha Jupe, who, if necessary, I can provide her information, who is Liam's personal assistant in London, organized my trip to Argentina with Paul. He was the former tour manager of One Direction and head of security for 14 years, very close to Liam. Jerry Cardona, part of the security group of One Direction, and Noberto Nava, who is part of the American security company that joined the group. I arrived on Friday the 18th at about 6 a.m. in Argentina. I didn't talk to Roger anymore, neither on the phone or in person. He just sent me messages on WhatsApp with his condolences and telling me that he wanted to give me a hug and talk to me personally. But honestly, at that moment, I don't have that energy for that. I was going through this grief as best as I can. A friend of girlfriend of his, Lula, also sent me messages expressing her condolences. I don't know how she got my number because I never passed it to him. Surely Roger gave it to him. Asked by the prosecutors to detail the bond of his daughters, Liam's sisters, with Caitlin Cassidy, he replied Ruth was the closest to Liam's girlfriend. Based on what was narrated above, he was asked by the prosecutor to say what he imagined that something bad had happened to Liam, and he answered. At first, because of the form of the urgent communication that Roger used when talking to me, it was different from the usual treatment. He had also struggled a lot with Liam's addiction, and my fear was that he had returned to them, and I particularly had the feeling that they did not take care of him. My fear was that Liam, with his personality when these episodes occurred, went away, and he was not in control with what he did. He was not Liam. I don't know how to explain it. Liam was very thoughtful when he was healthy. Wow. Asked by the prosecutor to state when was the last time he saw Liam alive, he replied, the last time I saw Liam was in Manchester on August 29th of this year. On his birthday in the morning hours, we were together staying in a hotel in Manchester for work reasons. Of this, I will detail later. I was accompanied him that day in the morning. My wife arrived and our daughters, we spent the whole day together until the night of the next day. There was also the bodyguard who worked with Liam. He had him as an artist by his fans. We were together until the evening, celebrating as a family, although my daughters left early, looking forward to starting to play again, to start new projects. Asked by the prosecutors to express Liam's physical and emotional state on that occasion, he looked good. I had been in Manchester for 5 days with Liam. He stopped together at the same hotel. From the moment I retired, whenever I could, I accompanied him because Liam was served by the feeling of family. Oh, man. Whenever I had the opportunity that I could, I accompanied him in his work. On that occasion, I saw him well, stable, clean of any drugs or alcohol. When I retired, Liam began his solo career with more reason. Whenever I could, I accompanied him, if it was only for 3 days. Asked by the prosecutor if Liam suffered from any type of disease or disorder, he says Liam suffered from problematic alcohol and drug abuse. I did not have direct knowledge of his addictions until May 24th of 2015, when a bodyguard of his told me about it, and it was an event. At that time, Liam traveled a lot for work, and I did not have full knowledge of his condition and situation. He was always very close. When I found out that same day, I confronted him, and we began as a family to be closer to him. I was busy traveling more with him and accompanied him, but Liam always took care to hide that side of him from me and the whole family, and he showed himself well in front of us. In fact, every time he had a new relapse due to his addiction, I didn't know about it in that moment. For me, it was important to be close to him and generate a bond of trust, although he did not always succeed. Even my daughter Ruth, who had more confidence in him, always asked him how he was, generating a space where he could open up and tell us what was happening to him, knowing the pressures to which he was exposed by his work. But he did not tell her too much either. We're a very close family. But Liam always showed himself well. He was in charge of being well in front of us, so we didn't worry. At least I'm not aware of Liam's other pathology. The only thing I know and have knowledge of his addictions in alcohol and drugs. Okay. Asked by prosecutors to report whether his pathology corresponds to psychiatrist and or psychologist treatment. He replied, yes. I don't know exactly the dates, but in several periods, Liam underwent psychiatric and psychological treatment for his addictions. Okay. Probably the first time it was on medical advice, but many times it was his own decision. He wanted to be healed. We always supported him as a family group, and it was always difficult and painful for us to see that he suffered from this type of addiction, especially when no one in the family is an expert in that, nor is there a history of addictions this year. Between January to April, I don't remember exactly the dates. Liam called me. I don't remember from which phone. It could have been one of Liam's that he had at the time, or his bodyguard. What I'm sure is that the bodyguard told him, let your dad know and himself that he was at the London airport with his bodyguard, to let them know that he was about to take a flight to Europe. I prefer not to mention the exact destination to voluntarily enter and begin treatment for problematic drug use and alcohol use was a personal decision. He told me that I was in charge of his financial affairs. Okay. He told me I was in charge of his financial affairs. And at that time, I was monitoring him. I saw him often. I saw him well, and he caught my attention at that moment because I had seen him wrong and I would have acted. But as I said before, Liam was in charge of showing himself well in front of me and my family so as to not to worry us. This treatment lasted 2 weeks. I think because he did not complete it. He called me when he was returning home. I immediately left London before he reached his house, where I was already waiting for him. His girlfriend was also in the house. And at that time, I didn't see him well emotionally. Okay, but that's repeated. But if he was receptive to receive help, we spent a lot of time together. At that time, I was already thinking that a program for his recovery was very necessary, which he then did in May of this year in the US, the period in which he returned from his short treatment until he started his new treatment in the US was very hard. I will try to recap and tell as much as I remember, although emotionally for me, it was very sad and difficult. That period of time, I was living with him for several days, just two of us. His girlfriend was traveling. I tried to talk to him as much as possible with Liam. We walked together. We shared moments together. In that way, I try to help him, even knowing that I was not an expert at the subject of addictions. I did what I could in my role as a father. The two of us being alone, sharing time at Liam's house. In those days, Liam was not well. I spoke with one of the bodyguards who came to live with us. We were both monitoring him all the time because he was in a bad way. Asked by the prosecutors to describe what he meant by Liam being bad, he replied, he says, I don't want to dwell on that. He was angry with himself because he couldn't be cured. All right. The witness continued, we finally decided to request medical help to intervene because me and the bodyguard could no longer control the situation. We managed to keep him stable, but Liam wasn't getting better. He was stable, but not improving. In that period, Liam received calls from Roger. I didn't know who he was. I understand that his girlfriend Kate gave him the number because they had no one else in common. And obviously at that time, Liam used his own cell phone. He says that we had seen each other before at parties, but I didn't recognize him. At first, I didn't answer his calls until finally Liam answered the phone and put it on speakerphone, and we all heard the conversation. I, Liam, and the bodyguard heard Roger tell him that he knew that his health was not good, and that since he had known him for a long time, he offered to help him in exchange for nothing. He offered to leave London and do good recovery treatment in Miami. At that moment, Roger was entirely available to Liam and his care. He offered to take care of him and his recovery. This call was at night. The next day, the three of us flew to Miami because we considered that this absolute change of environment was going to be favorable for Liam. Roger picked us up at the Miami airport, and we all went to Wellington to a country house that has polo fields owned by a certain I think it's Gonzalo, friend of Roger. We stayed there for 10 weeks with Liam. The four of us during the time was formed a team with Roger and the bodyguard for Liam's recovery, always monitored by psychologists and psychiatrists, all of the Roger contacts, so I don't have their details now. Liam's girlfriend came and went. She didn't stay for 10 weeks. That period for my son was very positive. He was very good. I think he was taking some of his medication for his issue. I don't know which ones, clean of drugs and alcohol. The four of us were very clear that our purpose was Liam's well-being. In that period, we also had several meetings with high-level entertainment personalities looking for job offers for Liam, all arranged by Roger. But at Liam's request, because he wanted to work, in fact, from May 16 to the 21st, the four of us, Liam, the bodyguard, Roger, and me, went to a trip to Buenos Aires and Uruguay so that Liam could see Louis, former One Direction band member, in some concert that he had and get familiar with the idea of going back to work. Here we stayed at the Hyatt Hotel and went for a few days on a walk to the countryside of Gonzalo. Okay, I'm pretty sure that that's his name. Roger's friend, who is 75 minutes from here. I don't remember exactly where Liam was playing polo there. He was very good. We went straight back to Wellington to the cottage and stayed there. As I said, 10 weeks. Liam, while he was in that house, produced music. We even closed a TV show that was then filmed in Manchester for the entire month of August this year. The 10-week period in the house ended in mid-July. Liam was clean all the time. I can assure you, before going to Manchester and accompanying Liam at work, I flew home to see my family. Meanwhile, Liam stayed at the country house in the U.S. with Roger and the usual bodyguard. I had a feeling that it was a safe place for him. He was in good company. The bodyguard is my trusted person, and Roger at that time voluntarily offered to take charge and take responsibility for Liam. And though it was good that he stayed until he started his work in Manchester, the production the production of the show was delayed and began in mid-August on the 15th approximately. On that day, we met Liam and the bodyguard met in Manchester. The first idea was that Roger would come too, but that but with this change of the date, he did not come. I don't know where he was at that time. I also understand that with Liam, they had arranged that Roger was not going to get involved in his artistic issues, as Liam told me. Manchester work was short. On Liam's days off, the three of us would go to a country hotel to make him quiet. At the end of the recording party, Liam had a few drinks of alcohol, but under my supervision, it was all very calm. At the end of the recording party, Liam had a few drinks of alcohol, but under my supervision, it was very calm. At no time did he ingest any drugs or was he in a state of a drunkenness. The recording ended around his birthday. Then Liam went to Paris because he had a wedding. Okay. He left with the bodyguard and his girlfriend was awaiting for him there. I didn't want to accompany them so as to not add more expenses. I also knew that the two of them, he was going to be well taken care of. I always kept in touch with the bodyguard to see how Liam was doing, and they told me he was fine. Then Liam and his girlfriend, in the company of the bodyguard, went on vacation to a beach in Europe. And when the vacation ended in mid-September, the three of them returned. All right. To the country house in Wellington where Roger was awaiting for them. The bodyguard left, and I don't know why. I know Liam told him to leave, but I understand it was because Roger was taking him to that. Then they met at the house, Liam with his girlfriend and Roger. I communicated with Liam through his girlfriend and the phone. Through his girlfriend's phone, I think. It was the last phone conversation I had with him because I was very worried about him because I had taken the bodyguard away from him, who was my trusted person. I wanted to know what was going on I want to know what was going on there. Why he had told the bodyguard who had helped him so much to leave. I told him I wasn't suspicious of Roger's intention, and Liam just told me to stay calm. I knew that Liam's visa was expiring. Then I found out that he had decided to fly to Argentina to renew it. At that time, I asked Roger how Liam was doing, and he assured me that he was fine. I was also very concerned about how the issue of the publicity known complaints made against him by his ex-girlfriend had affected him. The reality is that I was not with Liam, but I understand that it affected him a lot on an emotional level. Although Roger and his girlfriend told me that he was fine, they understand that they must not have been able to talk about much, that have not been able to talk much about it with Liam either because he was very close person with his personal affairs. I couldn't travel to Argentina because I had a medical checkup to do, but I had already postponed because of the stay in Wellington for 10 weeks. Liam's plan was to renew the American visa in Argentina to return to Wellington, and in November, I would meet my wife and his mother there. Later, his stay in Argentina was extended for the reasons of the visa. If you're watching this is a part 2 of finishing up this Geoff Payne declaration, okay? Now, make sure you watch the video at full where we read the first part of the complaint. Rogelio Nores clearly has taken it upon himself to blame Kate Cassidy, to blame Geoff, blame the bodyguard, blame everybody else but himself for this tragic situation. And I'm glad that at the very least, that the Argentinian courts found that holds some responsibility. In my opinion, there's a lot more responsibility that Rogelio Nores holds, but I'm glad that the Argentinian courts saw through it and were able to say, no, you hold more. So let's get into this paperwork so we can finish up the last part of this declaration, which I did not get to read to everybody. And let's go. Asked by the prosecutor to provide the affiliation and contact details of the health professionals who were in charge of Liam's subsequent treatment in the U.S. and those who later assisted him here in Argentina as part of the procedure to renew his U.S. visa, he replied, no, that data must be in Roger, who managed the whole matter. In relation to the immediately previous question, And beyond the fact that Liam has died, out of courtesy, he is asked by the prosecutor to say if he relieves Liam's psychologist of professional secrecy. He answers yes. Asked by Mr. Prosecutor to describe what Liam's personality was, like taking into account his highly exposed profile, he replied he was a very honest person, very generous, very affectionate, very empathetic with his fans. He was always in a good mood. He helped everyone where he was. He felt a sense of well being. Asked by the prosecutors to explain whether Liam suffered attempts to take his own life or self harm, he replied, I'm not aware that he has ever been in those circumstances in his life. For work reasons, he left home at a very young age, at 17 years old. So it is likely that I don't know many situations that he has experienced, especially considering that he always took care to show himself well in front of his family so as not to worry us. But I never knew directly or from those who accompanied him that something like this had happened or that it was a reason for conversation or dialogue with anyone. Pause right here. Sometimes people hide depression or suicide ideations or thoughts and stuff like that very well. And, him being 17, still a child, vulnerable, right? Just imagine what he might have been exposed to, what he had to do. And it's my understanding that even at that age, when, he was on X Factor and all this other stuff, it came out that he was a victim too at some point. Although we don't do a good job in allowing men to be victims. Here's a good example of that. Asked by the prosecutors to details who made up Liam's family group, he replied, my wife, his two sisters, his son, Cheryl, Bear's mother, and me. I had a very good relationship with everyone, but I had a closer relationship with Ruth. Asked by the prosecutor to describe who made up Liam's circle of trust, he replied, in recent times, his circle of trust was his girlfriend, Roger, and the bodyguard, in addition to our family, whom I have already named. Asked by the prosecutor to detail the relationships between Liam and Rogelio Nores, he replied, I understand they met 3 years ago through mutual friends. When Roger found out that Liam was in a bad way because of his addictions, as I said, he reached out offering him help in exchange for nothing. I met Roger in Miami. He says we saw each other at a party before, but I don't remember. The two of them had a friendly relationship. It is true that Roger this year arranged meetings for Liam to enter the job market again, but he said that he did it to help him, not for something in return or with a contract in between. He was looking for his relationships, nothing more. I also noticed that Roger directed Liam to develop more in business than in his artistic part. This change of direction in Liam's work was not favorable for him because what he liked to do and did him good was make music. Liam knew that I thought it was wrong for me to leave music for investment. When I met Roger, he was focused on Liam's well-being and I believed it to be genuine. Then Roger changed his focus when he tried to integrate his girlfriend into the circle of trust we had with Liam. His girlfriend, the bodyguard, and me. I didn't mention it, but a couple of days his girlfriend showed up at Wellington House during the 10 weeks we were at the cottage with the bodyguard. We observed and began to notice that Roger, with his attitude, downplayed the seriousness of Liam's problems. For example, something minor that I remember is that he made jokes about the subject in front of Liam. What I want to make clear is that Roger had full responsibility for Liam's care during this last period when at least I was not there, because that is how he assumed it when he called him by his own means to help him in his treatment. In fact, it was Roger himself who decided to accompany Liam on his last stay in Buenos Aires as part of all this care he needed. Care of which Roger was well aware. Liam's trust and care group at first were the bodyguard and I, in addition to Liam's girlfriend. Then Roger joined, and when I had to go back to my house and the bodyguard too, Roger and Liam's girlfriend continued. He was together with Liam precisely to take care of him for no other reason. In fact, he regularly reported his state of health to me. Liam couldn't be left alone, and Roger knew it. And when the care group format broke when Liam's girlfriend left, Roger booked Liam a room for himself. And that's how what happened because Roger knew that the objective of the group was to keep Liam busy. He could not be left alone in the vulnerable situation in which he was. It was even the recommendation of one of the doctors in the UK had given me. I don't remember this detail. I don't remember his details. And that was the basis of Liam's recovery, which was always remembered in the care group that included Roger. Liam could not be alone, and Roger was the one who had taken responsibility for that care, at least during the stay here in Argentina. So, from the sounds of it, Liam's dad, Roger, the bodyguard, the girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, all formed a care group for Liam. Basically, this was like a bit of an off the wall supervision, intervention, treatment, familial friend group, right? That were supposed to kind of like look out for him. At one point, Liam's dad said that he supervised him while he was drinking. And so I'm wondering if part of this group was also like if Liam's dad, if Geoff was not around, then Roger watches him drink and do drugs. Like I'm trying to figure out what the dynamics is here. It is very difficult to be in a situation like this for all involved, to be fair. But at the same time, there is a piece that we cannot ignore here whatsoever is that knowledge, right? The knowledge that they all of them had, that Liam had a problem, that Liam needed more support. And they had invited psychiatrists and psychologists. Roger was well aware of that. Roger, whether he was doing it for free, okay, or whatever, or free of charge, which in my opinion, there's no such thing as being in a situation like this and doing something for free or for out of the kindness of your heart, guys. Watching over somebody who it looks like it's round the clock hard, right? Kate Cassidy was getting a little bit of she was getting a big allowance, right? What was Roger getting? So Kate Cassidy was the girlfriend being paid to be there type of situation. Did they love each other? What happened exactly? I'm so confused by this, right? By that little arrangement. And Liam could be left alone. Roger knew that. He knew that. And that's what Liam's dad is saying here is that, yes, there is this acknowledgement that Liam had problems, but Roger was well aware of this. Nobody does this for free. Kate Cassidy wasn't doing it for free, that's for sure. We can assume that. The bodyguard certainly was getting paid. What was Roger getting paid? What was the incentive behind this? What happened here? Asked by the prosecutors to say if he was aware of Liam's changes of accommodations during his subsequent stay in Argentina, he replied, "No, I was not aware of the changes or the existence of the hotel where the incident occurred." Okay, so dad didn't know that they had changed hotels or anything like that. Asked by the prosecutor to describe his relationship with Rogelio Nores, he replied, "I met him when he arrived in Miami, and we maintained those weeks of coexistence for Liam's recovery, as he himself had offered." Again, offered. "When I wasn't with Liam and he stayed with Roger, who was responsible for his care," and he repeats, "he was the one who reported his condition to me, and sometimes his bodyguard when he was an artist." Asked by Mr. Prosecutor to describe the handling of Liam's finances, he replied, "Liam's finances were handled by a person I trusted, Alan McVoy. If necessary, I'll provide his contact details later. I know that Roger intervened in Liam's finances, but that is something that I'm finding out internally with my own work team." Oh my God. Liam had told me that the plan was for Roger to replace Alan. And in fact, it didn't come to fruition because Liam passed away. Roger was supposed to take over Liam's finances. That's interesting. And he's doing all this for free. It's interesting. Asked by the prosecutor to say what brand was the watch that Liam used later, he replied, "The one that I know was used during his stay here in Argentina was a Rolex brand. I don't know your serial number. I don't know the serial number. I think there's a typo there." In this same act, he provided via WhatsApp a photo of the said watch for further illustration. In the same act, POSF is shown the handbag seized from the Casa Sur Hotel and its contents, and opportunely certified in the record, to which the complaint said, "I recognize that bag was my son's property. It was his travel bag. I never had access to it, so I don't know if the things inside are his. But I understand that yes, he used that type of professional headphones, pencil sharpener he used because he drew. The same for the charger because he had a computer of the same brand. I don't know if the medicines were his. Likewise, I request that the bag be delivered to me as soon as possible." Asked by the prosecutor to say if she wanted to add anything else, she said, "The only thing I want is to help the investigation with everything I can do. I have no doubt that Liam wanted to live. It doesn't cross my mind that it was possible that he wanted to hurt himself." And that is the end of the declaration. Now we have another declaration. This declaration is said to be the first one that we just read, okay? October 22nd of 2024. The second declaration is said to be October 25th. So in this certified translation, and I think this is part of their declaration as well, and we have to talk about this piece right here. I think it's important, okay? Mr. Prosecutor in charge of the National Criminal and Correctional Prosecutors Office number 14, Dr. Madera. I, the undersigned, Geoff Payne, passport number, father of the victim in this investigation, Liam Payne, am addressing you in order to bring to your attention an email received today from Mr. Beldivada, again, the bodyguard, to the mailbox of Mr. Paul Higgins from the mailbox, and they list the mailbox, but it's redacted, which was originally sent on September 16, 2024, from the mailbox of Dr. Rachel Rohady from her mailbox, informing a conversation between the aforementioned Rohady and Mr. Rogelio Nores, where she indicates that she's writing the letter to him since she did not have Liam's email, and literally states as follows: "Under these circumstances, unfortunately, I do not feel comfortable with continuing with Liam's psychiatric care. These medications are delicate, and mixing them with alcohol can be deadly. I do not have the staff to help him during his crisis, nor do I have time of my own time to handle the 2 hours it takes sometimes me. I believe with all my heart that he needs one-on-one care, which I am not in the position to provide." After that, she finishes the note with a greeting. In the same email, the doctor attached a letter addressed to Liam that reads, "Dear Mr. Payne, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to inform you that I will not be available to continue your psychiatric care after careful consideration of your needs. I believe that you need a higher level of care. I unfortunately cannot provide you through my practices." They're using a translator to translate this, and I think this is what was sent to the court. We've been talking about this, and now we have an actual document of what the information looked like, okay? What we know thus far, or so far, is that Liam needed a higher level of care. And this care group, which consisted of a variety of individuals that, you know, did they have his best interests, is questionable. The way this is being described, it really shouldn't have been anybody in his family or his friend or even his girlfriend or bodyguard. Like, it needed to be professionals. And it sounded like Liam might have needed round the clock care. He probably shouldn't have been traveling. There's so much to this, just by reading some of this. And based on what the psychiatrist said. Okay. It further reads, the important factors to consider are the following: medication adherence. You must take the medication exactly as prescribed. This means orally, as instructed, and not in any other way, such as snorting it. Altering the method of administration may be dangerous and significantly reduce the effectiveness of the treatment. Number 2, alcohol consumption. You must avoid heavy consumption of alcohol while under treatment. According to the National Health Institute, moderate drinking is defined as 1 drink per day for women and up to 2 drinks per day for men. It is essential to adhere to these orders to prevent any negative interactions with your medications and to support your overall mental health. Were people around him drinking? It makes you wonder about this. Therapy sessions. Number 3, it is vital that you talk to your therapist on a weekly basis to process your depression and your trauma. Regular therapy sessions will provide you with the support and strategies needed to manage these issues effectively. Number 4, compliance with medication and diagnostic tests. Complying with your medication regimen is crucial. Additionally, you should require neuropsychiatric testing for a comprehensive evaluation of your diagnosis. Genetic testing may also be beneficial in guiding you in managing your medication and ensuring that you are receiving the most effective treatment. Number 5, primary care coordination. Establishing care with the primary therapist is key. Regular blood tests, including urine analysis, electrophysiology, and toxicology scans, are necessary to monitor your overall health and impact of medication. It is important to me that you receive the appropriate care and support necessary for your well-being. I recommend that you seek a specialist or a facility that can offer you the intensive care and resources you need at this time. To assist with this transition, here's a list of therapists in your area that may be able to help you with your needs. And so they put a bunch of therapists' name in there, okay? Thank you for your understanding, and I wish you the best in your continuing journey towards your mental health, well being, and sincerely, the doctor signs there. Now, that I guess is like copied and paste from the original email. Then the narrative continues. It should be noted that Mr. Beldivada, again, the security, turns out to be the person who Liam's bodyguard in London, Great Britain, and Florida in the US from August 2023 to September 17, 2024. He provided his cell phone number that Mr. Vada was fired from his job as a bodyguard by Liam. The reason was that when the psychiatrist resigned from her position, Liam went to see another psychiatrist with Rogelio Nores, and they both hid Liam's problems with alcohol and drugs in order for him to prescribe psychiatric medication and avoid giving him the care recommendations that the doctor had given him. That, due to this situation, Vada decided to visit the new psychiatrist alone, and he informed him the real problems that Liam had. Because of this, Rogelio spoke with Liam and manipulating him into firing him, which Liam did on September 17, 2024. Oh my God. Now, this is interesting. You guys, this is very interesting. So, I, eh, eh, the interview.
Before this happened, he was up in Palm Beach with his girlfriend and bodyguard, and he got into a really bad argument with his bodyguard, who is a great guy, a good person, and he was just trying to protect him against one of those like craving episodes. And he told him to stay in the room. And Liam, he used a green garden hose to climb his way down.
He climbed off the balcony.
He didn't appreciate at all people telling him what to do. So the following morning, he fired his bodyguard after that episode, but he was bragging about his ability to climb out of his house.
The interview that Rogelio does, he says, well, he fired him. Did you tell him to fire the bodyguard? I'm wondering about this, Rogelio. Likewise, Dr. Rachel happens to be Liam's treating psychiatrist in Florida until September 16 of 2024. This narrative right here is it's in English, and then they translate it over to Spanish. Okay, and this is what the prosecutor's office receives. And then here's another letter that says, Dear Mr. Payne, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm ready to inform you that I no longer be able to render care. So this is the letter from a psychiatrist to Liam, where we just talked about the things that were outlined by the psychiatrist. Okay. So I'm not going to repeat and read that. There's Jeffrey Payne's signature with the doctor. Okay. And so they basically, I mean, this was received by the courts. All right. And so they used the translator to translate all those documents. Okay. And then they add more to the exhibits. So in the exhibits, and there's more to these exhibits, and I feel like some of this needs to be cut into pieces because it's all over the place. So like they're using this, they're saying that Mr. Higgins, which is Liam's security, falsely stated that Liam and Niall Horan did not meet October 2024 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, because Niall refused to meet with Liam because Liam was using drugs. Mr. Higgins' statement is simply false. They were going to travel to Argentina to see Niall, Liam's ex-partner, to renew his visa. That seemed like a good plan to me because Niall is a very healthy person. I thought it was good for Liam to strengthen the relationship. I specifically asked Roger to look after Liam, and he could not consume drugs or alcohol. Okay, so this is just more to the translation services. So there's just so many moving parts to this, right? Um, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's such a poorly written complaint. Let me say that. I don't know who wrote it for him. It sounds like it's an attorney, but it's just the way that it was written. It was so repetitive and it was just very hard to follow and read. To me, it looks like Rogelio's trying to just pass the buck. I did learn something from Jeffrey Payne's testimony and statement alone, which I thought was important, which is why I did the single video here. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments overall about this. I mean, it's like yesterday I was thinking about this after my live was done. The audacity of like you suing his father, but it's all strategy, guys. This is all strategy. Please note that. The lawsuit isn't about defamation, it's about strategy. You see, if you can carry a lawsuit here and then carry that information out to Argentina, would that help Rogelio in his appeal? Potentially. Just a thought that I had. I said, why this lawsuit? And why say the things that he said? Strategy. I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out. Hit that like button. Thanks, guys.